Welcome to Latina Mic Drop, the podcast where you can show up and show out, where bold moves are not only encouraged, but the standard. This is where excellence meets simplicity and common sense. I'm Miriam Simon, your host, a leadership coach, author, speaker, a mom of 3 young adults, a grandma in my 40s, and a spouse to the most beautiful, kind soul on a mission to empower 1 million people to continue to tap into their exponential power. If you're out there building your own family and your own future from scratch, you're in the right place. Join me as we explore the stories, strategies, and secrets that can turn your hustle into legacy and peace of mind. Ready to transform your life? Let's get started. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Latina Mic Drop. In this episode, we're going to dive into talking about the language that you speak. So I was thinking about this because recently I was called casual. I'm a very relatable person and I choose not to use jargon because people don't want to hear that. And people want to know that you're a regular person like them. And even if you're in a leadership position, people are more attuned to understanding what you say as opposed to trying to figure out what you're talking about. And so for me, it was interesting too, because I do speak 2 languages. I speak English and Spanish. And this person wanted to use that as an excuse as to why I couldn't communicate with other people because English is my second language in quotations. But the reality is that I learned English and Spanish at the same time. I did speak Spanish first at home, and I learned to speak and read and write Spanish. And then as soon as I went to school, which I started here in the United States in pre-K all the way through to college, I have spoken English pretty much my entire life. So yes, I do speak both languages, but I learned them both at the same time. And what's funny is that I was in bilingual class because I was only speaking Spanish when I went to school, but then the teachers right away recognized that I could speak the language and I was a fast learner. So what they did is they moved me really fast into the English classes. So I've been speaking English forever, as long as I could remember. I mean, I've been in the United States since I was 6 months old, and my uncle and aunt are both American. They were born here in the United States, and I practically grew up with them, and they were speaking English already. So to me, I really don't think I was speaking English before Spanish. To me, I was speaking both of them at the same time. And I don't speak Spanish or English with an accent. I mean, I may sound like I'm from Jersey or New York sometimes, but I've heard people tell me that. I've also heard, if I speak in Spanish, I'm gonna speak in with Mexican terminology because I am Mexican. My kids are Puerto Rican, have Puerto Rican. My wife is Puerto Rican. And there are different words that they speak that I don't understand. They, meaning Puerto Rican, speak, and I don't understand. So, like right now, with the recent launch of the Bad Bunny Debí Tomar Más Fotos album, there are some things in there that I need to ask my wife, hey, what does that mean? But for the majority of the wordings, like I understand it because it's Spanish. But that's not because it's a hindrance or it's stopping me from understanding or it's stopping me from communicating. And I'm pretty sure you all understand me in all these episodes and Latina Mic Drop. And I know for a fact through every single project and every leadership position, whether it's my regular role, whether it's leading my team, whether it's leading a project or helping the EBRGs. I was a leader for an EBRG at the Hispanic Society. Then I became an advisor for one group, the administrative professionals group, and now I'm a advisor to the parents working together, and that relationship is new. So we're going to start that relationship now. But it's just so interesting to me that people would use that as an excuse to say that you can't communicate because you speak two languages. So I learned English and Spanish concurrently at the same time, and this person learned English later on in their childhood. So, I mean, I'm not here to compare, and I'm not here to say which one is better or worse, because neither are better or worse. But I just thought it was interesting that without this person actually knowing or actually asking me the question, they assumed that my issue was the same as their issue. And I didn't respond at the moment because I just didn't think it was appropriate at the moment to sit there and correct them. I took it as feedback and I took it back. And, there are some ways that you can level up your communication and your language, which I don't mind doing that. The way that I speak is to regular folk because I know that I am a regular person. I treat everybody like a regular person. And I don't want to sit here and act like I'm sitting on a high horse or sitting on a throne at any given time because people don't like that. And it's just not my way. And so I can use bigger words or I can use more formal setting, which I'll do that. That's perfectly fine. But at the same time, right, I want to be as relatable as I can to as many people as possible. And the funny part is that when I need to speak to senior executives, I always receive great feedback. There's some times where you listen and there's sometimes where you take it in and say, okay, well, I can improve on that. That's perfectly fine. And then there are other times where you're like, well, it was perfectly fine when I did it here. But then now in this situation, to me, it was almost like projecting, but I'm going to take the feedback and I'm going to listen to it because that's how I handle feedback. I listen to it, it's information, and then I start to pay attention and see where maybe I can improve or where I can be more formal as opposed to less informal and use different words. So that's what I want to talk about today. And I also wanted to talk to people that have an accent and that do speak English as a second language. It's perfectly fine. We can understand you and you should not feel less than. And people that do shame you for having an accent, they should be ashamed of themselves for even considering and making it seem like you're less than. Because it sounds a little bit different doesn't mean that the words are different or doesn't mean that your impact isn't as well received as it is from other people. And the problem too sometimes is that when you do speak very American, then people will say, oh, you sounded like a Valley girl or you sounded like this. And I'm like, what? I'm speaking regular and I'm talking to you in English. And yes, if I speak in Spanish, I'm going to speak in Spanish differently because Spanish is different. There are just so many different ways that people can interpret this. But at the same time, there's so many different languages across the world. One thing that I loved to work with was the people that had different languages at the airport because we had to take on people who had different languages because we're an international airport. So you needed people that spoke different languages. So to me, I've always seen it as a benefit and I've always seen it as a great thing for people to be able to speak two languages. I don't see it as you can't do something good enough because you speak two languages. How does the language and words you speak affect leadership, right? How does the language and words you use affect leadership? And the language and words you use as a leader are profoundly impactful because they shape perception, influence culture, and inspire action. Number one is that you set the tone for culture, right? So your words establish the tone for the workplace. You can either use inclusive, positive language that fosters collaboration and trust, or if you're using harsh or dismissive language, right, then that can breed fear and disengagement. So, for example, saying, we're in this together promotes unity as opposed to figure it out yourself. That's going to create isolation. Then the employee is going to know they can't come to you. They need to go back to the drawing board and figure it out on their own. But if we work collaboratively and together and you use that kind of language, then they're going to understand and they're going to know that they can come to you and come talk to you. And then being inclusive is always important, but some people don't even realize that they're not being inclusive. But using it will provide collaboration and trust. Number 2, defining vision and purpose. Leaders can articulate the vision and mission. You can rally the people around a shared goal. Clear and inspiring language ensures everyone understands and feels connected to the purpose. So if you have vague statements, right, then what happens is vision or mission that you're sending is unclear. And then that leaves things to the imagination, and people don't understand 1000% what it is that their mission and vision is and what the purpose of what they're doing is too. Your words also build trust and credibility. Building trust is important in the way that you speak to your staff and the way that you speak to people in general. I mean, there are some people who will step on you to get to the next level, right? New level, new devil, I've heard recently. And man, why do they do that? Right? Why use language that is, because I've seen it so many times that people will make jokes about somebody so that they can feel good about themselves, or they say things that are undermining another person. Maybe they can feel good about themselves, or they try to question every single thing. Oh, I didn't fact check that. What you're saying is wrong. That actually did happen to me. What is going on? Why are you questioning my credibility and my work because you didn't fact check it? Which in reality, you didn't need to fact check me. And I don't know who this person thought he was trying to do that to me in front of a bunch of people, but it did happen to me. And that doesn't build trust or credibility because you're questioning a colleague of yours that actually has pretty good experience. Being transparent and authentic builds trust, but I mean, don't be a jerk and don't say things that will undermine people. You can talk to people on the side, you can bring it up after the fact. If you have a real authentic question and you really do think you know something, you can ask the question. But there's a way to be inquisitive out of curiosity, and there's the way that you can speak that does not build trust, and it only makes you not want to deal with this person or not want to say anything in front of this person. It's important that you choose your words with honesty and integrity to create stronger bonds with your colleagues, your senior leadership, and people in general, and your teams, right? We always at the airport, like we always said, you know what? I don't have an answer for you right now, but let me go find out for you. So I would say, okay, this is all the information that I have. And then let me go find out from somebody else, maybe who has more experience or can give me the answer because I didn't have the answer. So like if an airline had an answer about something, right? I couldn't tell the customer, I don't know, bye, right? What you're going to do is say, okay, this is the information you're looking for. Okay, fine. Let me take that information down. Just give me 2 seconds or just give me 5 minutes. I'll be right back. Or we'll go together and figure it out, right? You demonstrate vulnerability. They weren't sure, but they figured it out. And we were able to continue on and get on to the next step. And that happens in everything. When you do not take accountability for your mistakes, or you are not truthful in what you say and your word is not your action, or your words do not match what is actual, then that's going to be a problem, and it's definitely going to be a hit to the trust, and it's definitely going to be a hit to your credibility. The other thing that words do, I think a lot of people do not realize this, right? But number 4 is influence emotional states. So words have power to inspire or to deflate. Leaders who use affirming, motivational language can uplift and energize their teams, while negativity can demoralize. The failure shows we're not good enough, right? Or you can say, hey, the challenge is an opportunity to learn and grow. And these are very important because sometimes what happens is that we do go through tough things and we do go through challenges, and there are mistakes that we could have probably avoided, or there was something that we missed and we didn't recognize it, because sometimes people are just go, go, go. But the whole thing about this is that as leaders and as team leaders, as co-workers, employees, people, family, the words that you use definitely have an influence on how the other person will feel and the emotional impact that'll have. And therefore, some people, right, don't even realize what the impact is. Pause and sitting with it is okay, because you can let it land, give people the time that they need to take it in, understand it, and then they can react, right? But some people, they just want to talk and say, and then don't even realize what the impact is. And they go back, oh, they didn't say anything. Well, you didn't give them a chance to. You asked, but then you didn't pause and you didn't give them a chance. Or you came in with too much information, overwhelmed them, and now they don't even know where the hell they're standing because you gave them too much, right? And so then you want to make sure that you use words and language that uplifts your team and energizes them, as opposed to deflating them. Number 5, you want to encourage growth and development. Coaching oriented language shows belief in others' potential, motivating them to strive for success. I use this a lot in coaching because I do work with people who are relatively new to their jobs. If you've been a leader, a lot of people are moving on within a year or two, maybe 3. The higher you go, maybe 4 or 5 years, people are staying in their jobs. You end up needing to work with them and train them and help them grow. And therefore their confidence is a little bit their confidence is not there 1000%, only because they react to things and they aren't 100% confident in the work, or don't know everything quite yet because they're learning and in training. What you want to do is you do want to say, hey, I see a lot of potential in you, or how can I support your growth? How is it that you learn? Is it that you need videos? Do you need training? Would you prefer that we sit together? Would you prefer that you do it? That you take the wheel and you drive? What is it that will support you, and how can we work together? You want to empower people to take ownership of their development, and encouraging growth and development is huge, especially right now, especially right now. That's the one thing I've been working on for 5 years, is encouraging growth and development within the different ranks that I supervise. And it's been a really rewarding experience for me, because I love to work with people, and then coaching them, I can see how they grow, and me mirroring them is a great way to be able to show them their growth, or what they didn't even realize they were doing. So for instance, I have a client who recently, I was career coaching her, and she was thinking about a job. The interesting part about it was that she said, oh yeah, I pulled this job description. And she sighed so loud. And then I repeated that to her when she finished her sentence, and she didn't even realize that she did that. And she said, really? I said, yeah. I said, and on top of that, you mentioned that your hair stood up. So when you pulled the job description, it just didn't feel right. You were getting like emotionally charged about it. And me being able to coach her and talk to her about it opened up her eyes to seeing that she was having a reaction, and that's not what she was looking for. Therefore, it wasn't aligned with what she wanted to do. The language that you speak, or what you say and how you say it, it does make a difference. And having a coach to help you see what you're doing or saying, or how you're talking, can help you understand and help you grow and develop and move towards your goals. The other thing that language helps you with tremendously is navigating conflict. Now, the way that you communicate during disagreements can either escalate or de-escalate tension. Nonviolent and empathetic language fosters resolution. So help me understand your perspective is more constructive than you're wrong or you're a liar. Don't say that to people. The language you use is so important. It's so important that when you're navigating conflict, because we can see differently and because we can get to the same place in a different way through a different path, because we are all different, it's important that you demonstrate that you're looking for reaching a common goal. And it's okay to agree to disagree as well, right? But at the same time, you want to make sure that you're not being dismissive of the other person, and you're also addressing their needs and understanding where they're coming from. And some people are just stuck in their ways and they don't understand, and they just want to be right. That makes it a little bit harder to talk to people, because sometimes there's times where people are just not at the maturity level that they should be. And they're not at the maturity level where you can have an adult conversation and speak clearly with them. I choose my battles wisely. The best way I've noticed to do that is to speak to people in person, not through email or text, because they get misconstrued or they may take it in a different way, and then also they can forward that email to other people. But it's really important that when you're navigating conflict, you figure out a way to de-escalate tensions instead of making it worse. So there have been many times where I've been in the middle, like facilitating a conversation. And the one thing that you really want to make sure you do is that you are understanding both sides, and you don't place blame, that you talk about what it is that is happening, and you understand each other's side and understand where you came from, why it happened that way. And then you can come to a mutual agreement. But sometimes some people don't want to hear it. I get you. I know. Language can also help shape identity and belonging. Leaders create identity through inclusive language that acknowledges diversity and celebrates individuality. Saying your unique perspective is valuable communicates that everyone belongs and matters. It's important to understand what people's pronouns are, how they identify. If they want to use a specific label, you use it. If they want to use a specific name, that's what you use. It's important that you understand people's identity and belonging. I personally don't like labels. Yeah, I have kids and yes, I have a wife. But for me, I don't like to label it. And that is just my way of doing it. But there's other people who say it and they're perfectly fine. I'm perfectly fine with that. It depends on how people want to be identified, and what they want is okay. So listen to them, and whatever it is that they tell you, use it. If they decide to change it, they changed it, and use it as appropriate. Use whatever they want you to use, and it's okay to be respectful of people's identities and help them feel like they belong. You can also, with language, you can drive accountability and results. So being clear, having assertive language is crucial for setting expectations and holding others accountable. So instead of saying, try to get it done when you can, a leader could say, this needs to be completed by Friday, right? Let me know what support you need to meet this deadline. Yeah, if you leave it open-ended, it is not going to get done, or they can have other priorities that they may think are more important, and then they'll do that instead, as opposed to doing what it is that you need. So in order to get results and to drive accountability, you really need to be clear as to when these things are due. So sometimes what managers do is they put a meeting notice on the calendar. So they'll say, next week, Wednesday, I need this presentation by that date. So then you know that by the time you meet, you better be ready and prepared to have that presentation ready to go so that you could be reviewing it at that time. You do all the work before. And then sometimes if you don't say the date or you say, you know what, do what you can, people will take that literally and they will do what they can based on what it is that's important to them or what their workload is. It's important that you're clear with people to tell them what are the, deadlines, what your expectations are, and be clear and assertive with staff. It's easier to hold people accountable for those expectations. In essence, leadership is a conversation, right? The words you use are not just tools for communication, they are instruments of influence, vision, and transformation. Great leaders recognize this and yield their language intentionally to create impact. It's so important to be able to use your words effectively. And sometimes, like when you're feeling emotionally charged negatively, it's important that we often say, right, journal it, write it down, take it out of your body and put it on paper. But that doesn't mean put it in an email and send it out. Like that's not okay. You want to take it back because sometimes you're just so emotionally charged, you don't even realize the tone that may come across. And therefore, you don't want that email to make its way. And then you regret what you said, or that's forwarded. And then it becomes something worse than what it should have been had you been able to take a pause, right? Not be so reactive, write it down, but on a piece of paper or somewhere else. And then what you can do is from there, you figure it out. These are important because there are some people who will, that email is coming, they like to micromanage, or that they will always have a change. Some people are like, they tell you to do something, they give you no direction, and then when you come back, then they want to change everything about it. But the one thing that I do understand is that I'm capable, I understand what it is, and this is from my perspective that I do the work or write from my perspective for the audience that it's intended to. And so sometimes that audience doesn't know everything that you know, and especially if they're newer in the positions than you are. And sometimes they're just not aware. And so therefore it's okay for them to ask questions. I have somebody who kind of gets upset if I ask a question. But if I ask a question, it's because I want to ensure we've done it like that before and want to make sure that we're not doing just something out of the ordinary, out of nowhere, because the language is important. It's just so interesting to me how people judge you based on the words that you use. I think it's sad sometimes because people prejudge you for how you speak and what you say and how you talk. But at the same time, as long as you're a good person and as long as you have a good heart and you're doing the job and things are getting out and people respect you and trust you, that should be enough. But sometimes it's not. There's a level of formality that needs to be used, right? And I think sometimes it's just an excuse too for people to kind of like not value you or value your worth. But at the same time, it's important that you listen, you hear, you understand, because like sometimes it's just people's opinions, and sometimes for some reason, some people just want things to be done like they would do them. And that just doesn't resonate with me. If we're a partnership, then let's work on it together. Then when I send it in, give me feedback. When I ask for, what it is that you want, let me know. Give me a template. Let's figure it out. Let's work it out. But language is really important. It's important for us to speak our minds and be able to talk and be able to articulate our needs and wants and be able to articulate our projects and be able to speak to our teams, our colleagues, our senior executives, our supervisors. If a doctor tells me there's this diagnosis, right, that I received or whatever, and I don't know what the heck that is, I did not go to doctorate school, right? I don't know what that is. So you need to help me understand what it is. So they do need to translate that into layman's terms so that I can understand what it is that they're talking about. And well, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Latina Mic Drop, and have a good week. Take care. Thanks for tuning in to Latina Mic Drop. Remember, you're not alone on this journey. We're building something extraordinary together. If today's episode inspired you, subscribe, leave a comment, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. For one-on-one coaching and more resources, follow me on your favorite social media platforms at author Miriam Simon, or visit my website at Miriam Simon Online. Until next time, keep turning your tattoos into pearls of wisdom and your dreams into reality. Stay strong, stay focused, and let's make history.